the first thing you need to do whenever you're thinking about planning is actually understand your own patterns. So best way to do this is just go to your sales from the previous year, from the 2 years prior to that, and just look what happened. Let's say you haven't planned and you need to do stuff. Well, let's look at what you can do in January. So there's a few things. I will say, I'll just get this off the top. There's a couple things marketing-wise that I like and a couple things that I don't like. But I'm going to start with one thing that I don't like is I do not like Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit owner for almost 20 years, and now we help restaurant owners increase their sales, increase their bottom line profits, and help them have more freedom with their time. So I've got a couple questions that came in, and I'm just going to do a few episodes addressing some of the questions. I basically did an email out to all of our subscribers and asked them some questions that they had, what they wanted answers to. So I'm going to spend a few episodes going through some of those, but I'm going to start with one, which was that, hey, winter's coming up. What should I be doing to help keep my sales up in wintertime? Which is a great conversation because as you're seeing this, it's going to be probably mid-December. I'm filming this just at the end of November. And planning for January, February is extremely important to do. So I'll start with this. The first thing you need to do whenever you're thinking about planning is actually understand your own patterns. So best way to do this is just go to your sales from the previous year, from the 2 years prior to that, and just look what happened. What happened in the first week of January? What happened in the second week of January? What happened in the third week of January? And just figure out, okay, what happened with my sales? What were my scheduling like? If you keep track of your food and your labor costs each week, which you should, go back and look at those to see how those fluctuated as well. And I would go a step further, go back and look at your bank account because there's going to be an interesting phenomena which is going to happen in about the first week to second week of January. So what's going to happen is for a lot of restaurants, we have a delayed pay period. So, we pay every 2 weeks, for example. And sometimes we have bills. Maybe you're on a 2-week or a 30-day account. And so, your bills are a little bit delayed. So let's just go through this in a story that, happened to me back, I want to say 10 years ago. And so what happened was Christmas was slow. We had a lot of catering right before Christmas, so we were busy. And I was like, man, this year, things didn't slow down right up until the 21st or something like that. And then at the time, I went to visit my ex's family when we were together, went to visit them for the holidays and stayed there for about a week and a half. And, I would check the sales every day. And obviously, the day after Christmas was slow. That whole week was slow. For us, New Year's picked up. That was a busier day for us. And then it slowed down on January 1st and stuff like that. And so I would check in on the sales and I'd be like, yeah, I know it was slow. I brought down my schedule. I reduced our ordering. Instead of having the 2 orders that we used to get per week from Cisco, we went down to 1. We just ordered more during that time because they had minimum orders and stuff like that. So we did that. And then what happened was I got back after New Year's or whatever, it was the 2nd or 3rd of January. And I all of a sudden went to pay all of my bills. And of course, I had a 2-week account with Cisco. So I was paying bills from prior to Christmas. And so I got all my invoices on my desk and I saw rent go out. And it happened to be a payroll week that first week. So I was paying was paying holiday pay. I was paying people for the period prior to Christmas as well when we were busier. So I was paying a larger amount. And then the money which normally comes in, which floats those bills, obviously our sales had went down. So I'm going to pay these bills and I'm just like, holy shit, where did the money go? At that time, normally, I carried, say, $10,000 in my operating account or something like that. But all of a sudden we're there in overdraft. And I'm like, what just happened? Oh my God, I need to figure this out. What are we going to do? I had to, figure out, okay, can I delay paying this by a week? And so I kind of went through this whole thing of figuring out, oh my God, where did the money go? Now you'd think, being a relatively smart person, that I would have picked up on this pattern previously. I'd been in business, 10 years by that point. I didn't because we it's interesting when we're in the trenches and in the business so much, we view business as each new thing is happening because it might be slightly different, even though the same patterns keep happening again. It's like, oh yeah, well, I know winter's going to be slow, but I didn't click in that, okay, well, that means I need to plan my marketing months in advance. I need to actually stock some cash away from the busy time because it's going to get lean for a little bit. And so I know in principle that, yeah, it's going to get cold, it's going to snow, it's going to do whatever. And what I didn't realize was all of these other second and third order consequences would happen because of that, because I just remembered that it was winter, but not everything else, because I didn't take proper notes. That's another thing that you should do, is actually take notes each week on what's happening so you can refer back to it, because guess what? There are similar things that happen every year, right? Like the restaurant business is very cyclical. And so if we don't understand that, we're just like, it's those who, what's the saying? It's those who don't read history are doomed to repeat it. There's a saying like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but something along those lines. If we don't become a student of our own business's history, we're just going to repeat the same year over and over and over again, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So I was freaking out about this, and I'm like, oh my God, am I going to have to close the business? Am I going to, what am I going to do? I can't pay myself. And I was freaking out because normally things were okay at that point. I had fixed all the problems in the business. And then all of a sudden, this first week of January, with all these bills coming due with slower sales, because again, the first week of January is slower. Second week of January is a little better, but not too much. At least that was my pattern. By the third week of January, sales went up again. And here's the other thing too that happened is when the sales started to go back up again, I was then paying bills that were from the period where the sales were slower. So I had cut down my ordering, we had scheduled less. So then my bank account popped back up to its normal level. But there's this period. And the reason I tell this story is because our clients, no matter how much we tell them this is going to happen and literally get them to go back and look at them, it's always an emotional surprise. Because if you know it's coming, it still punches you in the gut, right? And even, it's funny, even one of my employees who still owns a restaurant, she came to me in January and she's like, I knew this was going to happen, and I know what's going on, but my God, it still throws you for a loop the first time you see your operating account drop. So the reason why I'm saying this is you got to be ready for it. And I will say that what sometimes happens for people is that they become overwhelmed because of this new information and because of this situation. And so then they feel hopeless, they feel lost, they don't know what to do. Sometimes there is literally nothing to do. You just need to stay the course. And what I will say is that if you already have a plan in place, it's going to make staying the course that much easier, because you're going to go, no, I knew this was going to happen. I know this is the right thing. I'm already working on it. I just have to accept this discomfort for a time. And unfortunately, a lot of us have a really hard time sitting in discomfort, right? A lot of us as restaurant owners, because we're so close to the business and we're so tied to it, what ends up happening is we make knee-jerk, emotional reactions. Oh my God, I need to fire 3 people. And then, of course, 2 weeks later, you have to hire them back, or try and find new people and train them from scratch, just because now your sales have gone back up. This happens. People make decisions like this, and they start cutting a bunch of expenses when really there's nothing wrong. It is just that happens every year, and that's just part of what it is. So to make that situation better, what we actually need to do is plan. So there's a couple of things we need to do. Number one is we need to start planning your marketing in advance, because here's what normally happens. When people see their sales drop and they see their bank account drops, a couple things happen. Number one, some people will then cut all their marketing, which again is stupid because they're viewing it as an expense. But the reason that they have less money in the bank account is because their sales went down and their expenses are being paid from a previous time when sales weren't the issue. So how do you solve a sales problem? By cutting your marketing? Well, no, that logically doesn't make sense. If it's a sales problem, then we need to do more marketing and do that better. But most people will cut their stuff because it's an expense, which actually makes the problem worse overall. So If you're one of those people, don't do that. Keep marketing, because that's actually the thing that you need to do at this time if it is a sales issue. So that's one piece of it, is that we need to make sure that we don't cut your marketing. But then the other side is some people are like, okay, I got to market more because my sales are down, which is the right thing. But then they figure this out by about the second week of January. And then they start planning their marketing. And so, like, let's just say you're going to do a promotion, and you've got to take time to figure out the promotion. You've got to get the graphic design done. If you want to do a mail out, then you got to do printing. If you wanted to do whatever it is, it's going to take time. So on average, it takes like 2 to 3 weeks to get something rolling and out and in front of people. And what ends up happening there is, by that time, we're trying to promote sales in early to mid-February when it's Valentine's Day and stuff like that. And sales have gone up a little bit back to where, they normally are for that period in February. So it's like we're trying to solve a problem that's already passed by the time we actually do anything. Not to say that it's a bad thing to do more marketing, but the point is, because we didn't plan ahead, we then got behind. And then all of a sudden you're marketing in a time where maybe you don't need it as much, right? So you're trying to solve this problem, but that problem's already gone, right? So we need to plan ahead. And so as I'm saying this in late November, as you're hearing this in mid-December, the reality is you got to plan. And so if you haven't already started planning, I would say it isn't too late if you work hard on it. But obviously there's holidays and stuff like that coming up, so it's going to be more difficult. But at the end of the day, we just need to plan ahead. So the best people were planning in November for their January and February, right? That's what we should be doing. So let's talk a little bit about, let's say you haven't planned and you need to do stuff. Well, let's look at what you can do in January. So there's a few things. I will say, I'll just get this off the top. There's a couple things marketing-wise that I like and a couple things that I don't like. But I'm going to start with one thing that I don't like, is I do not like radio, TV, or billboards. The reason I don't like those is because the cost for them versus the ROI, unless you are in a brand position, usually doesn't make sense for smaller restaurants. So I'll give you an example. Like, I was driving by, and I used to fight with my franchise all the time because they love their billboards. And actually, I saw one the other day that I'm like, man, like, cool billboard, but it has to be so good of a billboard to make me then want to go and purchase something. And the billboards are very costly for someone to just like glance at it for a second as they're driving by. If you're a really well-known brand, sometimes that might work. Let's just say you're McDonald's, for example, and people happen to glance up and go, oh, McDonald's? Well, you know what? I do need something quick and I am kind of hungry and there's a McDonald's right up here. That might work. But if you're an individual restaurant, the cost to do that is usually too high and the ROI you get from it is never enough. So that's why I prefer different methods that are a little bit lower cost and that I find are more effective for you. If you have 5 or 6 locations, go for it. You can split the cost among 5 or 6. Same thing with radio and TV. It makes sense at that point to have, some of those, because they reach a much broader audience, and that's okay if you can split the cost between a number. So, if you have 5 locations, that makes sense. You could do some radio and that would be fine. It wouldn't break your budget. But most of us aren't in that ballpark. So let's take a look at that. One thing that I sometimes like are mail outs. And I know there's a lot of people, as we could have a whole conversation on discounting. Hell, I might have that conversation today if I feel like it. But mail outs, I will say, should not be overused, but they are okay to do once or twice a year at the right time. Now, the reason, let me tell you a story. So when I opened up my 4th location, it was a situation where I was opening up about a 7 to 10 minute drive from another location that was my best location in the city. It was in the top 10 of our franchise, and it was great. It was my moneymaker. It was busy from day one. It was excellent. So I'm like, well, that one's doing well. Why don't I open one, pretty close to that one? Because I was thinking in my mind, hey, in this suburb, we could have one. We could have 3 based on the population. We could have one here. We could have one here. And they all feed off of different markets. What I didn't anticipate was that the one that I opened there, instead of grabbing a whole new market, it would actually just steal half the market from my other one. And so then I had double the fixed cost without double the revenue. I had about 50% more revenue in total, which meant that the profitability went down. So don't do that. So most of the time when I talk about opening up more locations, I talk about that just to make sure, like, you have to look at all of your worst case scenarios before you do it. But anyway, that's not the topic of conversation for today. My point is, when I opened this one, I opened 2 weeks before Christmas, so never do that. If you're ever looking at opening, do not open 2 weeks before Christmas. You're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. You might as well just wait until January to do it. But what we did is I was going through this kick at the time where I'm like, we don't discount. We are a premium product. People love us already. People are just going to see the brand and they're going to come in because they already know us, and our other location does so well that they're just going to come in here and it's going to be great. And we're going to kick ass from day one. And that was what I thought. And so that was in December. And so I did a couple like gift card promotions where I did some, Facebook and Instagram ads for that. And through December, I'm like, okay, it's slow. It's fine because it's December and we didn't get the word out and people are busy and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, but it's going to be different in January. This January rolls around. And January rolls around. I'm like, oh, well, it's just January. That's why it's still slow. It'd be better in February. February rolls around. Not better. So I'm like, man, people just haven't found out it was yet. It's still cold. It's still winter. It's going to be better in March. March rolls around. Not that much better. And I'm like, oh man, well, just spring is going to hit. The people are going to start walking around more. They're going to see us more. It's going to be great. April rolls around. Not better. I say the same thing to myself because I like to think I'm a smart person, but I am stubborn as shit sometimes. And most restaurant owners are. You are probably that way. And I always joke about this because it's the only way that we still survive given all the shit that we deal with. So we just have to be so headstrong that we just plow down and go through it, even when it doesn't make sense to do that. So anyway, we get to May and I'm like, okay, it's warmer. My other stores have picked up and they're hitting their peaks right now. And this store still sucks. We're up 5% over our opening numbers or 10% over opening numbers. Something's wrong. And I remember I had one of the people that worked for the franchise, one of the operations people came and they're like, dude, you gotta do something. And they were just very blunt and very direct with me. And I was like, okay, fine, you're right. Because even me, I hire coaches because sometimes I need someone to slap me in the head and be like, you are an idiot. And I pay for that. That's why I believe everyone needs a coach. That's why we own a coaching company, because we do this for our clients, because we are all stubborn and sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees, right? So, and sometimes we believe the story we tell ourselves, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to happen. And then it doesn't, right? And then we're like, well, restaurants don't work, or, oh, I just need to sell this business because nobody can make it work. Oh, we can't make it work in this economy. No, it's just what you're doing, right? If the economy was so bad that no one could survive, all restaurants would be out of business. But some are doing better. Okay, this is a little side note, but people think, I did this post the other day, and what happened was, I asked, do you think it's possible to have a restaurant that makes money and you can have a life that you want and a successful business all at the same time? And there's a bunch of people who are like, no, it's not possible. And then there's some people who are like, yeah, that's my life. That's normal for me. And so I'm like, just by the fact that even one person has that means it is possible. By definition, it is possible. So therefore, if it is possible, but it's not what your reality is, then what is different about them than you? What's different about what they're doing than what you are? And that's the question that we have to ask, because it's not that it's impossible, because impossible means that no one is doing it or has ever done it. And if that is not true, then it is possible. The question is then, what is different? And what are we doing differently, right? Now, that's a harder question for restaurant owners to answer, because it means looking at ourselves and going, well, shit, maybe I don't know everything. Shit, maybe there's some things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing. Maybe I've tried it every way that I know how to do this, that I've tried to figure it out, but I just don't know what I don't know. And once you figure that out, then the change happens, and then you can you can make things different. But until then.
Hey, real quick. What if you could identify thousands in hidden profits, optimize your food and labor costs, and know exactly what moves to make next to grow your restaurant business, all in less time than it takes to drink your morning coffee? That's exactly why I created the Restaurant Weekly Financial Tracker. It's free and available on the link that's in the description. Grab your free copy now and focus in on your restaurant's profitability today.
So anyway, point is, I was so stubborn about this that eventually I'm like, okay, fine, I need to do something. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a mail out. I need to do something bigger. So I think we sent out like 20,000 pieces or something like that to 20,000 homes, which made sense for the demographic around. And then I did it for all my locations. So I think in total, we sent like 70,000 out in total between my 4 locations. But, split the printing cost between them all, made it a little better that way. And then we sent them out in all areas. So here's what happened in that one in particular, which I put more of an emphasis on. I put more pieces in that area for that brand new store. So I did that. And we did a few other marketing efforts as well. But this is one of the things for the mail out that I did. We had some coupons on it. Again, I was anti-coupon. I'm like, no discounts, never. They could pay full price. And then I'm like, well, who am I kidding? Because people don't know we're here. And brand new customers who've never been here, they need a reason to lessen the risk to try us. Like, we got to do something. And so we did. And of course, it cost a lot of money. But I think our sales went up about $2,000 a week after doing that. Now, that's not normal for everybody. But literally, we had that location prominently displayed. And we went up about $2,000 a week. So that business was never the same. And after that, I'm like, well, shit, I should have done this in January. I could have literally had $2,000 a week is $8,000 a month times whatever, 4 months. That's, 48,000, 32,000, something like that. Anyway, I have to do some math. But point is, it's good money, right? I could have had that in sales. Like I basically was like, I could have had the equivalent of a month's sales at that point for that location, which had slower revenue. I could have had a month of that sales, by doing that sooner, but it's because I was stubborn and I didn't want a discount. Anyway, so I learned then that I am married to the outcome, but I am not married to the road or the path that we go down. So I know I need to get to X place. I care less about how we get there, right? I'm flexible on that. If we have to do a mail out, if we have to do, if I have to jump up and down wearing a mascot suit on the side of the street, for 8 hours a day, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do if that's what I need to do to get to where I want to go. So I would do anything. I even took a mascot and went into a competitor's location, handed out coupons. I was savage back in the day. Anyway, point is that we have to be flexible on that. And so think of it this way. What happens in January? In January, everyone gets their credit card bills from Christmas where they overspent on everybody. And then they're like, oh my God, I need to eat at home now. And so that's where they are actually really receptive to value offers. So that's a big thing that actually makes sense, because if there's a coupon or a discount, they will be more likely to use it. Even the people that don't typically use coupons or whatever. And there's this whole thing that only cheap people use coupons, but that's not true. Those are just the ones that stick out in our mind. Those are just the ones we remember. The data actually tells us something different. So we need to be careful of that we actually let the data speak for itself. What does it actually do to the business rather than what are those 2 people that came in there and they didn't look like the demographic that we wanted that used it? Don't let anecdotes make your business decisions. Let the data make your decisions, I think is a really important thing to understand. So anyway, when you're looking for marketing in January, what we need to be doing is actually being okay with discounting. And because at the end of the day, your fixed costs are still going to be the same. Like, I obviously want you to have full price. And if you're a business that does not have a revenue problem, do your thing, right? If you're a fine dining restaurant and a coupon of $5 off, or that's not going to resonate with your market, do a couple's date night offer. A date night for X price, and you get, an appetizer, entree, dessert, and some drinks or whatever. Do things like that. Do specials like that to try and entice people in. Family meal deals make a lot of sense depending on, your particular product. So, but the thing is, we need to plan early to get this done. So I'll give you a perfect example of that. I love going to the movies. I find for me, it is something that I do because like I have to turn my phone off because like if I'm home, I can be scrolling. I can be like responding to, messages from my team. I can be like looking through client channels. I can be looking at, marketing and stuff like that. So I can do that all from my phone. And so I typically will do that while I'm watching something, which obviously means I'm not really paying attention, but that's just a lot of people. They literally actually heard that Netflix is now, they're putting stuff together where the plot lines are so simple that people can follow along even while looking at their phone. So that's a whole thing it's very common now. So I like to go to the movies because you have to turn it off and you have to fully focus in, and it helps me just clear my brain from everything else. So I'm able to just, more totally relaxed. And I love popcorn. So anyway, I was at the theater the other day, and on it was like, if you buy a gift card, so this is again, there's a holiday promotion. If you buy a gift card, you not only get this coupon and this other coupon, which almost made up to the value of that entire gift card, by the way. And the other thing with those coupons were that they were only valid January 1st to, I think, February 28th or something like that. And so you bought it in Christmas, but for redemption during their slow period in January and February, right? So they know their patterns. And so even in gift cards, they're already running promotions with the added benefit of trying to get people to come back during that slow time because they just need bums in seats at that point, right? It's not about getting full pop. You go there, you're going to pay full price for the popcorn. So same thing, we need to look at that from like our drinks, our desserts, our appetizers. People are going to do those types of things. And we could make our full price on that. But they're discounting, like there was a buy one, get one movie ticket or something like that. So they lose some money on that, but they make it up in the other revenue. And having something is better than nothing when it comes to that slow period, because the alternative is lower sales overall and fewer bums in seats. So that's kind of what I want to make sure we do. And that's why there's things like different promotions you can do in the Christmas period or in November that will then help your January, February time. So that does require planning in advance. So if you haven't done that, that's okay. Make sure you do that for next year. Just this understanding where your business is going, I think, is a crucial thing. So next piece that I will cover, just like what else should you be doing in January and February if you need to do something quick. The easiest thing to do, if you have an email list and a text list, use it, right? If you don't have those, start building it, because you can then, let's just say you have 10,000 people in your text list. If you texted 10,000 people with an offer, I bet you could get some business. I remember we had someone who had like a list of 1,000 or 2,000 people. He sent out one message and brought in like $2,000 in the next 2 days in revenue just from one message, right? Like it is possible to have major ROIs on that cost you almost nothing. So that's something we need to understand, is that we need to continually communicate with our customers. Social media is great, but understand that 90% of people will see their text message within the first 90 minutes that it gets sent. So that's a very direct communication. Social media, you don't know if they're going to see it, right? It's important to do, but that's not going to bust your business wide open, right? So it's important to have the same type of marketing, but do it through all of your channels, right? Now, if you're not doing any Google ads or Facebook or Instagram ads, now's the time to do it, because you need to put some bums in seats. So it's important to do that. Other things I like to do, though, one of the easiest things to do is just your existing customers. How could you get your existing customers to come back more frequently? So I always talk about having a little bounce back or something, or just give someone a reason to come back. So just like a quick example, if someone comes in and you're like, hey, I'm just so glad that you came in tonight. Hey, I want you to come back again. We'd love to having you here. I wanted to give you a free dessert on your next visit. You can redeem it anytime in the next 2 weeks. Come back again, or maybe make it a month, whatever. I like 2 weeks because it's short enough that they have to plan it right away. It's more likely that they'll do it if it's closer. Otherwise, if it's longer, they'll forget about it. But just doing a bounce back. Hey, redeem this in the next 2 weeks. Hey, here, I'm just going to, sign it here. I'm going to give you my business card and write a note on it, whatever. So, yeah. You can do stuff like that. We want people to come back faster because they're people that already know you and love you. It's easier to get them to either order more, like order, online if they're regularly a visitor in the business. To get catering, if they already know and love you, they're going to be an advocate for your catering at the office. So like there's different things that you can do. It's just easier to get people that already know and love you to order more or order in different ways. Now, here's another thing. How much are you upselling right now? Right? Do you have an upselling program? Do you have a competition for your team? If you're not doing that, that's easy money. Every time someone comes in, anytime we institute this with our clients, their average check goes up like $2 to $3, and so I'm just like, man, $2 to $3 over every check, like that's a significant amount of money, especially when you need it most. So if you're not doing that, do that right away. Other things you can do, like I've always done this. I've tried to work with like local partners that were in my area, people I'm not competing with. Say there's a dental office, I try and do a little partnership with them. Every person that comes in and gets a cleaning or whatever, hey, they get a coupon to come in and visit me. I had a ice cream store right beside me, and they would come in for dinner with me and then go there for dessert. So we actually handed out each other's little discounts and stuff like that. So that just incentivized people coming to us in that area. That worked great. And just little things like that. We went in January, if we had healthy product, like the gyms are there. For every new sign up, they got, like a free meal with us. There's little things like that where we started to dive into how can we make these partnerships work? How can we get things going? You just have to think about this and think about like what's going on in your community at that time. You know what? If you're in a cold weather climate like I am, there's probably like minor sports like hockey, basketball, volleyball, stuff like that. Figure skating, cheer, swimming, like a bunch of stuff, right? So like, how can I get involved with them? And, we used to do a player of the game program. And so we would do that. And the kids would come in with their little player of the game certificate because they handed out one per game or whatever. And so they came in and they brought the whole family with them, right? So it was great. They got their picture on the wall, the wall of fame, as we called it. And it was great. So just like simple things like this, none of these, let me make sure I say this, none of these is a, like silver bullet, because your business is actually improved by 1,000 golden BBs. So it's not one thing, but it is 1,000 things put together that will make the difference for your business. So that's kind of what we need to do to winter plan. Think through all of those areas. How can I improve my lunch business? How can I improve my dinner business? If I'm not on third party and it's colder, people are more likely to order third party during this time. So there's things that we can do from a third party perspective that will be beneficial. You could run a promotion. I only ever advise running promotions for new customers, not returning ones. So there's things like that. So there's tons of stuff you can do. But I just want to make sure that you guys are thinking about winter and thinking about it from a strategic perspective instead of worrying about it from a perspective of, oh my God, my sales are down, the sky is falling, I have to take drastic measures for something that's relatively like going to be better in a couple weeks. But we just need to learn to plan, and we need to learn to look ahead. And so start looking at February, start looking at March. And our reaction is, I'm just going to cut hours. I'm going to go in and work myself. But I want to make sure you understand that that is a Band-Aid solution, because if you go and work more yourself, yes, you are saving some money in the short term, but it's not actually solving the real problem, which the business has lower sales. So I would say, sure, go in and work a little more, so long as you still have time to work on solving the actual problem, which is the marketing. But most people, they just go and they work more and then they don't have time to do the marketing. And so then anytime there's a problem in the business, they're the ones that drop in, they're the hero. And that's why their business never changes. That's why you keep repeating that pattern. Every time there's a problem, you jump in, because you haven't actually solved the root of the problem. And as business owners, we get paid to solve problems in the business. And until you actually solve that problem, you're going to keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, and you're going to stay where you're at. It's like a video game, right? Until you beat the boss, you don't go to the next level. And so if you're having to continue to do that, you haven't beat the boss yet, right? And so you got to put your effort towards beating the boss instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is not getting you anywhere, right? No one's magically going to come and fix your business. January is not all of a sudden going to randomly be this amazing month for you. You need to make it better. And the last thing I'll say is when we're looking at data, we want to look at our sales from this year versus the same period last year. So look at January versus January before. A lot of people don't do that. You'd be surprised at how many people that are like, well, my January is different than my December. Well, of course, it's a different month. There's holidays, there's all sorts of shit. January, in comparison to last January, will tell you, am I doing better this year or worse this year than I did last year? And you're comparing apples to apples, and that's the number you want to pay attention to. Because if you can get a 10, 15, 20% increase year over year, which is what we're saying with a lot of our clients, that's great. Keep on doing what you're doing, right? If you are the same or negative, then changes need to happen, right? But just compare yourself year over year instead of month over month, because it's useless data. Oh my God, we're slower than we were 2 weeks ago. Well, yeah, maybe that's just normal, right? Why are you getting freaked out about it? Because that's the normal trend that happens every year. Instead, look at how you're doing now in comparison to last year. And then if that trend is down, then you can start going, okay, what do I need to do differently? But yeah, I just see so many people go like, well, I'm slower than I was 2 weeks ago. Well, 2 weeks ago, you had a shit ton of catering, for the holidays. So of course you're slower now. Like, it just makes sense. But a lot of people don't think through it logically. So that's what I try and do, is call people up to think about it as a business and as a business owner. And if you do that, your business will be in a better place and you'll be better prepared for winter. All right, guys. I hope this is helpful. I hope it gave you a few ideas of things that you can execute. And I just hope it gave you a different way to think about your winter season. All right. We'll see you soon.
This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.